Okay, so that's just a little bit there about my environment, how I create the environment, how I try and maximize the potential of my athletes. Let's just talk a little bit now about some of my philosophies on teaching hurdles. I don't want to spend too long talking about technique. You've been exposed to that with Tom and Lauren. I'd rather just go through this, give you my philosophies, and then we spend more time watching videos. Okay? But if there is anything burning, please ask me. Okay, so I think these three things, rhythm, efficiency, momentum, just need to be in the back of your mind all the time when we're working with hurdlers. So we talked about the accuracy and the consistency of training. Well, that is rhythm. And just have a read through some of the bullet points there. If we're looking at a 400-meter hurdler, let's take Di Green. You know, fantastic natural rhythm. You know, he's not the fastest on the flat. He's not the strongest. You know, but what he's got is amazing rhythm, and he'll give you 48.2 all day long. All day long. He ran 48.2 at the Olympics and didn't start running till February, March, you know, with his injuries and stuff. But he's just so well drilled. He's so accurate and so consistent in what he does that that's his level. Now, you could argue on a personal level that his personal performance was actually better in London than in Daegu. But of course, you can't control your competitors, can you? You can't control what they do. So he will always give you that level. And if the competitors can't lift, then he'll get success. And that's what happened in Daegu. We must practice specific rhythm. So think about what you're doing in your hurdle sessions. What are you practicing? What are you instilling? What are you drilling? It needs to be very, very event specific. The most specific thing you can do is practice the race. All I do, I stick 10 hurdles out and off they go. You can't get more specific than that. If you want to get all scientific and the theory of overload, put 2 more hurdles out. Let's go 12 hurdles, stick them out and off they go. Make it really, really specific, okay? And if you're doing 400-meter hurdles work and it's snowing and you can't get outside, well, set the hurdles up inside at a rhythm that is the same to what they would run on the 35-meter spacings, yeah? It's worth spending a bit of time drilling that rhythm. It's very, very important. A lot of coaches get obsessed with how quick a guy's 400-meter time is and forget about the rhythm of the 400-meter hurdles. It's a different rhythm, 400-meter hurdles, than flat 400-meter running. Yes, of course you need to be able to run flat on the 400, of course. But it's a different rhythm. We have to teach the rhythm. Okay, so efficiency is the amount of energy required to run at a certain speed. Okay, so take the first point there. So one of the new sprinters that I have, he couldn't run 100 meters. He'd get to about 80 and die. So I had to explain to him, look, you know, energy's like I don't know where I came up with this idea, but I'll share it with you. Imagine energy is a bag full of water. And the minute you start your race, you puncture that bag, so water starts leaking out. And if the hole's too big, too much water falls out the bag. And you've got no water left when you get to the end of the race. So you've got to make sure that, particularly in a 400-meter hurdles race, that when you've got that bag full of water, or full of energy, that the hole you pierce is the right size. So that when you finish the race, you've still got water in the bag. How often do you see 400-meter hurdlers come from behind and win? How often do you see 400-meter hurdlers leading at hurdle 5 that win? Probably, I don't know the stats, but probably less often than the latter. Yeah? Yeah, I have a very simple theory in 400-meter hurdling. You get to hurdle 8 as quickly and as efficiently as you can, then you run like hell over the last 3 hurdles. There you go, that's my scientific approach to 400-meter hurdles running. Okay? I've just done an Olympic report, which will be coming out soon, on the 400-meter hurdles. And what I found from that was it's just so important, the last 3 hurdles. And the guys that won, the guys that got the medals, were the ones that held it together best over the last 3 hurdles. So there's no point being first at hurdle 5 if you can't bring it home, if you've if your hole in the bag's too big and you've got no water left for the last 3 hurdles, because you're inefficient when you're tired and you're trying to hurdle, because you lose momentum when you're tired. So if you make a hash, the best hurdle to make a hash of is hurdle 1, because you're fresh at that point. You can kind of get away with it. If you make a hash of hurdle 10, multiply it by da-da-da-da-da. Yeah? Because you're losing momentum, and then you have to use more energy to get your speed back up, and you can't do that when you're under incredible amounts of anaerobic stress. So think about the last 3 hurdles. So 4 hurdles coaches, the last 3 hurdles are absolutely vital. Well, they're vital, but you need to set the race up. Okay? You need to set the race up right so you can run the last 3 hurdles without losing momentum, without stuttering, without adjusting your strides. Athletes need to attack the last 3 hurdles. You see athletes, quite often female athletes, backing off the last few hurdles and jumping them. And they just hemorrhage time. And I think, why do you do all this hard work and then just throw it away by stuttering into the last few hurdles? It's crazy. Sorry, it's very dry in this room. Just have a read of those two definitions there. So I think, following on from what Tom said, sprint hurdling is sprinting. It really is. Particularly for the females, where the hurdles are lower. For the guys, it certainly is more modified sprinting. But it's very, very important that we learn sprinting rhythm between the hurdles, because it's different to running on the flat. What's an average stride length for a 100-metre runner? I don't know, 2.5 metres or something? Average stride length for a sprint hurdler? 1.8 metres? That's a big difference, isn't it? So, how are you going to teach your athletes how to improve that sprinting rhythm? So I've just broken down 3 technical points here. Improving sprinting rhythm first. So if I had an athlete or a kid come down the track, 12 years old, that's never hurdled before, first thing I do, I just stick some hurdles out and I just get him running over them, rhythm. And I don't care what spaces we use, I don't care what height we use, probably just put them right down. I just manipulate the hurdles so they're getting a really good rhythm. Then I'll start looking at clearance and take off and run off and stuff like that. But just get the running rhythm first. That's what I do anyway. I'm not saying that's the right way, but that's what I've always done. And then take off and run off. And again, I don't need to go into too much detail about the technical aspects of that. We've had that from other presentations. So what I tend to do is do a checklist. So you can break it down into the sprint hurdles into 5 distinct parts. So the start, which if you read Ralph Mann's book, includes the first 3 strides. The approach, takeoff, clearance, and run off. And then you can break those down further then into various other subsections, if you like. And what I would suggest you do is almost come up with, not so use that, but come up with your own checklists, look at your athletes, and then actually start going through that checklist and see what things you need to fix. And as Lauren said yesterday, fix the most important things first. So look at the whole thing and think, well, okay, well, if I fix this, what will that also correct? So don't try and correct what you see. Try and correct what you think will happen if you sort something else out. So posture is a great one, isn't it? You sort posture out, well, then that helps you run off the hurdle and stuff. So if a kid's falling off the hurdle, don't tell him to, pull the trail leg round or something. Get the posture right first and see if it auto-corrects. And I'm a great fan of that in coaching, is getting the kids to do stuff without telling them exactly what to do. So you almost cue them on something else, and the result is that actually that fixes or cures something else. So always try and think of that. Look at the whole picture. Look at the whole technique. Look at the whole movement. Watch videos of your athletes if it's too fast. Those of you that were in Lauren's presentation, we had the girl starting, and he said, right, we'll watch this and then we'll talk about it. And it just went, and everyone's like, oh my God, because you don't know the athlete. So straight away you're thinking, but once we slowed it down, we all picked up on everything, didn't we? It's very hard to pick things up straight away. And that's where you need to know your athletes and know what their sort of predispositions are. So the 400-meter hurdles. Again, just have a read through the sort of definitions that I've come up with there. But again, the technical focus is running rhythm. But now I've put an emphasis on efficiency. So pace judgment, understanding stride patterns, understanding touchdown times. Try and get away from this writing your touchdowns down on a scrap of, on the back of an envelope, given to your athlete while they're throwing up at the end of a race, and they sort of go, "Oh, thanks, coach," and don't do anything with it. Sit down, analyse it. Look at what their time is at hurdle 5. Look at their time at 200. Look at their time at hurdle 8. Look at what's happening at the change down. Look at their clearance times. Is there a difference between left leg, right leg? Analyse it, and then get them thinking about it. There's nothing wrong with athletes thinking. Well, maybe there is sometimes. Thinking about the right things. But they need to think. Try and get them out of the idea of just running for the sake of running. I hate this idea of athletes that come down, they train, and they're gone before you can even see them. They have to come down and think. Every rep matters. Every rep counts. How much does your athlete need to improve in a year? Break it down. It's the Mark Spitz thing, isn't it? Have you heard that? Where he was sat at home watching the Olympics in 1968, whenever it was. And he said, well, I need to improve by whatever it was. And he broke it down to, a thousandth of a second a day over 4 years. And he knew he had to improve by 1,000th every day. And by breaking it down, that's how he developed that excellence, if you like. The same thing with your athletes. You're looking at minimal gains every day, aren't you? I always say to my athletes, be better today than you were yesterday. Be better tomorrow than you are today. So sometimes they're moaning and groaning after a session. I say, well, was it better than last week? Yeah, it was actually. Well, shut up then. What do they want? You've got to be able to hurdle with both legs. So get that instilled straight away. And a little trick that I like, if you're doing 4-stride, 6-stride work, so alternate leg stuff, always get them running into the first hurdle on their other leg, their least preferred leg. Little trick. That starts rewiring the brain. You always know when you do that sort of work, you always know which legs theirs preferred, because they'll always start the first hurdle on their preferred leg. So get them to start on the other leg. Because once the rhythm's established, it's easier to hurdle off your least preferred leg, isn't it? When there is no rhythm, or when you're trying to build rhythm, it's harder. So push them, test them, squeezing water out the towel again. What's happened here? And obviously race distribution, yeah? So look at the stats. Look at your touchdowns. If as a coach you can't film and time at the same time, fine. Just get home and do the touchdowns, afterwards. The athlete doesn't necessarily need to know their touchdowns as they're crossing the line, yeah? Maybe talk about it the next day when there's no emotional reaction from what's just happened in the race. Because after a race, they're either jubilant, they've run well, in which case they're not going to listen to anything because they've done it right, irrespective of whether the process was right. And if they've done badly, they're going to be in a bad place and they're going to be thinking irrationally. So maybe wait till they're at emotionally dead, if you like, and then you can look at fact, not emotion. So let's talk a little bit about the training year very quickly, because you all know this stuff. Strength, endurance, speed. Okay, we obviously need a relationship or a balance of these things in your program, but that thing in the middle, particularly that word, coordination, is absolutely vital to everything you do, is that coordination. So whenever you do these things, think about coordination. Think about intramuscular coordination. Think about the muscles talking to each other in simple terms, yeah? What's happening? And that's how you're going to get the best neuromuscular response, by really getting the coordination right. Okay? So please, and I'll show you some videos of some of the stuff that we do with the coordination and coordination under fatigue and stuff. You've got that. And then this is another diagram really more about the different types of strength and their interrelationship. And again, flexibility coordination sits in the middle. So always think about, how are you going to develop that coordination? If someone's lifting poorly and they're not coordinating and they're not getting the muscular coordination you need, what are you going to do? Change the exercise, change the stimulus? Because otherwise you're not going to get the neuromuscular response you want.